Hello everybody, my name is Lisette Coly and I serve as the Executive Director of Parapsychology Foundation. We are here filming today within the Foundation's magnificent Eileen J. Garrett Research Library that's open to the public. But today's film is really in answer to many questions that we field here at Parapsychology Foundation as to just what is parapsychology. Obviously, parapsychology is often misunderstood thanks to the media, and so today we'll get some correct answers. And here with us today to answer correctly will be Dr. Carlos Alvarado, who is on staff at Parapsychology Foundation, and let me tell you a little bit about his credentials. He was a research assistant to Dr. Ian Stevenson at the Division of Parapsychology at the University of Virginia. Later, he was a visiting scholar at the Institute for Parapsychology in Durham, North Carolina. He is presently serving as president of the Parapsychological Association and is the current president also of the Asociación Iberoamericana de Parapsicología, which is the Ibero-American Association of Parapsychology. Dr. Alvarado is currently working here at the Foundation, where he serves as our chairman of domestic and international programs, the series editor of the Foundation's scholarly monograph series, and the associate editor of our International Journal of Parapsychology. He has conducted research in Puerto Rico, Scotland, and in the United States on the psychology and the features of out-of-body experiences. He's also known for his reviews of the historical literature of the field. So you can see he's eminently able to answer the question, just what is parapsychology?
Well, today we're here in the garden of the Parapsychology Foundation, and as you can see, snow is falling on us. This always makes me think of the marvel of snow. You know, for me, snow is always a very special thing. But I always keep thinking on how someone that has never seen snow and doesn't understand it in scientific terms, how will they think of snow? How will they explain it? I think people that have never heard it and will see it maybe even as a supernatural phenomena caused by invisible entities. Maybe for some people it's food that the gods are sending, you know, from the sky for us down here. Something that we may laugh at that, but depending on your background, certain things will be very unusual to you. And I think that will be the case of snow. And for other people, psychic phenomena will really do that. But I think that snow also has some very other interesting parallels for psychic phenomena. One of it being that it's kind of an elusive thing. We have snow right here falling in my hands, but if I get inside or it's warmer, it will just disappear, will evaporate. Psychic phenomena is similar. You may have it in some context, in some occasions, and all of a sudden something changes. Sometimes we don't know even what it is, and we no longer have psychic phenomena. So it's kind of almost similar to having the snow one moment and then losing it. Maybe something changes from one state to the other. In psychic phenomena, we know almost absolutely nothing about the causes, the mechanisms, or even the psychology behind its production. We know more things about snow, but still there is a very interesting parallel here. Something as physical as snow can also be difficult to catch, and you can get snow only in some places and in certain circumstances. So out here where it's cold and with certain weather conditions, but not in other weather conditions. So we speculate that psychic phenomena are probably something just like snow, but we know much less about it. And perhaps the day will come where we understand those conditions like we now understand the conditions behind snow. We understand those conditions better for psychic phenomena, and we may be able to produce them at will, and more important than that, we may be able to understand its meaning much more. I would like to present a short introduction to the field of parapsychology. As many of you know, parapsychology is a very complex field, a field that studies a big group of phenomena. So it will be difficult to give you coverage of the whole field, but I will try to highlight the main phenomena, the main areas of studies, some aspects of the development of the field, as well as some of the things that we have learned about this fascinating phenomena. But let me start with outlining what is the subject matter of parapsychology. First of all, parapsychology basically is the study using the methods of science of a group of phenomena that have never been integrated into official science, into psychology or into physics or into biology. They have connections with all those areas of science, but none of them really are studied by science officially defined. That's why it has been necessary for people to form a new field called parapsychology, which basically tries to apply scientific method and a systematic approach to the study of the following phenomena. We can start outlining the main type of phenomena, and they are basically designated as extrasensory perception phenomena, or ESP for short. Those are those cases, I'm sure many of you are familiar with cases of this sort, in which someone obtains information about something happening at a distance. ESP can be said to get information about people's emotions or people's thoughts at a distance, what we call telepathy. Or you could talk about getting information about events that are happening at a distance and that you cannot see or hear normally. By an event, I mean some type of a physical event, such as a car accident or something that you are kind of observing an event taking place, as opposed to the thought or the emotion that someone is experiencing. The event, the perception of the event in an extrasensory way will be called clairvoyance. And then the other type of extrasensory perception is what we call precognition, which is getting information about the future. Let me start giving you some examples of these interesting phenomena so that you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. One of them is a case I like to recount, comes from the 19th century, but it's very colorful and it has some practical implications to the life of an individual. And this is a small girl that is in school, and she's coming back to her home in a small town in England. This is in the 19th century. As she's coming home, she doesn't pay much attention to her surroundings because she's reading a geometry book from one of her courses. As she's approaching home, she has what she describes as a visionary experience in which suddenly, without, she didn't feel anything announcing the coming of the experience. Very suddenly, her surroundings, the book she was reading, the surrounding streets and trees vanish. And the next thing she sees is a scene from one of the rooms of her house, her home. It's basically a room that they used to call the white room because it was mainly white. And she notices that in that room she can see her mother lying down on the floor. And obviously something not normal, holding a handkerchief in one hand, and she seemed to be completely unconscious, like she had fainted there. This lasts just a few seconds, the vision vanishes just the same way it started suddenly, and the girl is perplexed. She doesn't know what to think, but she knows there's something wrong because this is something unusual, and she knows that she has seen her mother lying on the floor. So she rushes, instead of going to the house, she rushes to the family physician who lives close by. She gets the physician and brings this person to her house, basically telling him what she had seen, and she's sure her mother needs help. When they get to the house, they go to this white room and then find her mother fainted on the floor the same way she had been seen in the vision. The physician is able to help her, and they save her life. So this is a case, where not only do you get information of something that the girl didn't know was happening, she didn't know there was anything wrong with her mother, was not expecting her to have fallen into the floor on that particular occasion, but even going beyond that, you have the practical implication that this information allowed the girl to take some action, get the physician, come and treat the mother on time. There are many cases in the psychical research literature that are just like that. People get information about something usually unpleasant, usually related to death, but sometimes there are perceptions of positive things as well. But when you get a lot of cases of this sort, and you put them together in a study, say of 100 cases or several hundred cases, you find that most of them are like this little girl's vision, that the content is about something stressful or an event close to death happening to a loved person at a distance. So this is a type of extrasensory perception, but as you can see from the account, it's very difficult, really impossible to determine where was the information coming from. I mentioned you before that we can talk about telepathy and clairvoyance, either information coming from people's minds or emotions or thoughts, or being able to perceive directly an event. If we're trying to make that difference in the case of this little girl, in practice it's really very hard to do, because you could argue that what she perceived were the thoughts of her mother. Maybe as she was fainting or as she was lying on the ground, she may have had an image of herself in the room and lying on the floor, and maybe that's what was projected, the impression that the mother had before she fainted. On the other hand, the girl may have perceived the actual physical reality of the event, the mother lying right there. In reality, we don't have any criteria to help us prefer one explanation over the other. We just know that there was something unexplained, that the girl got the information in some way that we don't understand, and we really do not know the source of the information. That's one of the basic problems of parapsychology. We have this fascinating phenomena, but we still do not have clear explanations of why they happen. When we talk about precognition, that's basically seeing the future, we are getting into an area that is really old, as you know, from all the accounts of prophecy coming from biblical times and even before. The whole idea that the human mind can tell what will happen in the years to come or in the next few days to come. In parapsychology, we emphasize those cases that may be verified. That is, those people that have impressions, or in many cases have dreams, which content refers to very specific future events. Most of these cases are not specific, so they present a problem. So you get someone that will tell you a dream about something very general, like something like there will be a plane crash. Because that's very hard to study, because as you know, there are many plane crashes all around the world, and the person doesn't tell you when the plane will crash, what plane will it be, if it's American Airlines or any other airline, the country in which that will happen. So the possibility that that will happen within the next few days is, it will not be amazing at all that there will be a plane crash, like the person said. However, the cases that are more interesting is where you have specific details about the events that are reported, mainly the makeup of the plane, the people that were there, where did the event happen, and if possible, a particular date, like saying it will happen tomorrow, or it will happen in a month, or something like that. Most of the cases are not that specific. But even when they're not specific, they can be very dramatic. Very recently, because of a lot of the September 11 tragedies, we have had reports from a lot of people from all around, and this has also happened in Europe, of people that have had dreams that they believe were anticipating these horrible events that happened here in New York and in other parts of the States. Some of those dreams, you cannot really be completely sure they were referring to September 11, but the content is highly suggestive, such as views of people running when buildings are crumbling, and these dreams supposedly took place just a few days, maybe a week before the event happened. This is very typical of these precognitive experiences. Sometimes they see the faces of people running, the faces of people with terror, being very afraid. Other times it's just a group of people that you cannot identify anyone or any particular place. Sometimes the dreams are kind of symbolic, in which people don't see the same event that happens later, but they see something, say that they associate with death, or with a positive event, such as a white light, or if it's something negative, it could be like a black bird flying over. People in their dreams, usually have symbols. There's nothing parapsychological about that. But we have found that there are many cases in which those symbols seem to interact with the extrasensory content of the dream. So some of these dreams about the future can be symbolic as well, which makes the whole interpretation of it difficult. I have been talking up to now about extrasensory perception, that is getting information from the outside world. But parapsychology also studies what we may say is kind of the opposite process, which is affecting the physical environment, what people popularly call the mind over matter, the power of the mind to act over matter without using your hands or without using any other physical instrument or any technology. By that I mean people that say that they can move an object without touching it. You know, there have been cases reported over history of people that just wave their hands over small objects and the objects move following the movements of the hand. It's not a very common experience, and it happens just in very particular individuals, but that is the type of example, the type of phenomena that parapsychology is called psychokinesis, which is in a way the other side of psychic phenomena, ESP perceiving, psychokinesis affecting the environment. There are many ways in which we can affect the environment. The movement of objects is only one, and one of the most simple that you can find. But then there are others that are even more interesting because of their implications. You can talk about psychokinetic influence on biological organisms. By that I mean organic matter. You can affect animals or you can affect human beings, like the concept of healing. Traditionally, there have been healers in many countries over many times over history, and there are people that come, for example, and they lay their hands on someone that has a tumor or is suffering from pain, and they claim that they can make the pain disappear or that they can cure someone from a medical condition. If that can be determined as real, you know, that the medical condition disappears after those treatments, that can be seen as an example of psychokinesis, because what will be happening there in theory is a physical effect on the person being a biological organism. We don't know where that effect is really acting, you know, if it's on the cells of the person or if we're just increasing the circulation in that area. There can be many possible biological explanations. We really don't know how it works. But the challenge is to find out first, does it happen? And then how it works. We have studies in which in the laboratory we bring people and ask them to try to pray on a plant or to try send positive thoughts on a small plant and make it grow faster than another plant that is not receiving any attention. And most of these studies tend to show that the plant that receives that attention tends to grow faster than the plant that is not receiving any thought. Not only plants, but also bacteria or viruses. There have been studies in which people are asked, instead of making it grow faster, inhibit the growth. And you find that those bacterial cultives that get that type of attention, of inhibition, grow much slower than others that are not receiving that attention. So there is something that is happening there, but we really don't understand. But it's part of what we call psychokinesis. Someone is affecting, without any normal means, the growth of that particular organism. And then there is a third area that psychokinesis is also studied widely, and that's probably the most studied today, which is the effect on physical systems. Today, it will be mainly on computer systems. Most laboratory experiments done to test psychokinesis today focus on someone trying to affect the output of a computer. Say you program a computer to produce sequences of numbers, ones or zeros, and you ask the person, try to focus on the ones. And at the end of the trials, you basically sum up all the numbers, and through statistical procedures, you can determine if there were more ones than zero as expected by chance. And of course, that's an accumulation of many trials. It's something that you cannot see by the naked eye, but statistically, you can show if there was something unusual happening, and someone that corresponded to the intention of the individual. Because if it's something that doesn't correspond to the intention, you cannot claim that there is an effect from the person. But in a general way, are the two main areas of parapsychology, ESP and psychokinesis. That doesn't mean that's all that we study. We have a really big group of phenomena that may be related, as has been postulated in the past, to ESP and PK or psychokinesis, but sometimes we're not sure if they're the same processes. One of them are reports of apparitions. Apparitions of the living, apparitions of the dead. An apparition is, as the word implies, something that appears. Those are visions of people. The most common ones are people that have died. You have lost your loved one, and you enter your room and you see a visual appearance of your dead father that you just lost a week ago. That's what we call an apparition. In some of these cases, these visions are really very short. In others, they may stay for a while, and people say that they can even talk with their loved ones. It's very common that people that have lost a spouse feel their presence very strongly, especially in the first months after the death. Some of them just feel the presence, others can even feel the touch or see people. This is very common in the bereavement literature, the literature that deals with grief after death. The question is, of course, what is happening there? Is it only imagination because you miss the person so much, or is there something else? And that's where parapsychology comes in, the study of maybe there is something else to some of those reports. And you try to see, first, is there some evidence that there is some spirit or something that continues after death that really can communicate with people? Or is there some other explanation? In parapsychology, as I said before, one thing is to have the phenomena reported, another thing is to explain it. The fact that you have a vision in front of you doesn't mean that it's necessarily a spirit of a dead person trying to communicate. There could be other explanations, and those explanations have to be assessed according to the case. But in any case, apparitions are one of parapsychology's traditional phenomena. Not only of the dead, but sometimes you get apparitions of the living. That means you see someone that is not there at the time, but is alive, and that person is usually at a distance. And what we find in those cases of apparitions of the living is that apparition that you have seen of that person, the person is passing through a crisis at that moment. That means that person is close to death, is really ill, or something very stressful is happening to them that seems to be related to you seeing an image of that person at a distance. That's another type of apparition. But other than apparitions, we have many other fascinating things, many of them related with this concept of spirit influence. Another one of these is communications through mediums. Traditionally, the movement of spiritualism has had people called mediums, individuals that generally fall into trance. Sometimes they are not in trance, and they claim that they can channel or bring spirits. Parapsychology traditionally has studied these claims to see if these communications can be assessed, and you can find first if they are real, in the sense that you can get some information that can be verified, and then you have to see, how do you explain them. But that's only one of the other phenomena. Another fascinating one is the one that we call auras. And those are when you see someone, sometimes you see lights or energy fields around their body. Some people believe that we have an energy body that can be perceived. Others believe it's just a hallucination. But auras is another of these traditional claims that parapsychologists include within their phenomena. Out-of-body experiences is another phenomena in which people feel that they leave their physical body, and their consciousness is not in their physical body as we usually experience consciousness, but the consciousness is separated, and you can see your physical body at a distance in most cases, and you can float and go to different places. That's another of the fascinating experiences that we study in the field. Dowsing, which is the ability that some people claim they have of finding minerals, water, or other things that are under the earth. People walk over a particular field, and either with a rod or with a pendulum or with some other way, they determine where they feel you have to dig to find these things that are underground. And of course that has a lot of practical implications, because people that look for water or oil, they need to find it sometimes for financial reasons or to provide water to an area. And they believe that psychic powers sometimes can be used in this practical way. So that's another one of the claims that are extremely old, that parapsychologists try to study to see if there is something really behind them. I mentioned healing before, so I will not stop now to give details, but I have not mentioned poltergeists. Poltergeists are basically phenomena that happen around one individual in a house or in a particular area. Usually they consist of sounds, movements of objects, and a lot of other physical events that look like they are following, or that there is some type of persecution of one person or several in the same house. It's usually very frightening, and people are always calling parapsychologists and calling the police and calling priests, basically to get rid of those manifestations. The parapsychologist wants to find out first of all, if he or she can establish that these things are really happening, because sometimes you find out that these things are only in the imagination of people, so you have to make that difference. But there have been many cases where parapsychologists have gone to the places where things are reported to move around, and they have been able to verify that some things are really happening. How do they happen? Once again, like in all the phenomena in this field, it's still a mystery, but it's one of the claims that comes also from the old days of the field. Very related to that is the phenomenon of hauntings or haunted houses, in which the phenomena are associated not to a person as they happen in poltergeist, but to a house or to a location. In hauntings, you seem to have more reports of apparitions, but there are also physical phenomena that are reported in hauntings. Again, these are the studies that you have to do by going to the place and interviewing everyone and finding out if you can make a difference between something that is really happening or the imagination of the people that are there. And again, there are many other phenomena in the field, but those are some of the main ones. What we try to do with them is, first of all, we try in parapsychology to determine, do they happen? Once they happen, the next task is, what can we do to learn something about them? Because in science, we do very little if the only thing that we do is to show that something is happening. That's only the first step. The second step will be, okay, something happens. In a poltergeist case, an object moves. Or in a healing case, someone got healed, they no longer are suffering from a disease. How did that happen? That's what science really wants to find out. Is there an issue of a force that came out of the healer and got into the patient's body and dissolved a tumor or killed the bacteria that was causing an infection? We want to find those things. But that, of course, is the very difficult part of parapsychology, because these phenomena are very hard to study. First, they are hard to find, some of them, and even when you find them, the resources of parapsychology are really very limited to be able to do a lot of systematic studies to understand the phenomena. But in principle, what we try to do is the same thing that scientists in other fields do. And we do it like psychologists, sociologists, or other scientists do their work. We do experiments on some occasions. So we bring people to the laboratory and try to control the conditions to see what can we learn from this phenomena. We also study cases. We go to the places, like there is a haunted house that is active, we go to the haunted house. We cannot bring the haunted house to the laboratory. So we go there, we study the events there, and we try to establish what's happening and see if we can learn something about the mechanisms of these things. And there are other approaches, that you can use also from the social sciences, such as bibliographical research, in which you study, what recorded history has said about a particular phenomena, and you basically try to summarize it and see if there are commonalities, if there are things that you can learn from knowledge that has been accumulated over time. Part of the difference of or I would say the main difference between parapsychology and the popular movements like spiritualism or occultism is that parapsychology tries to apply the scientific method, and it also tries to be more critical than those other popular movements. That means we're always considering the possibility of fraud, the possibility of other explanations, such as if someone says that they saw the ghost or the deceased mother, the first question is, okay, that does not necessarily mean that there is a spirit there. The person may be grieving and they may be projecting a hallucination with purely psychological, in a purely psychological way, because that's a way to handle grief. And that's still significant to the person, but it's not necessarily a spirit of the dead that comes to communicate. So we are always considering alternate explanations for a lot of the phenomena. And in some cases, those alternate explanations are so common sense things as deception or fraud. You know, if we're studying someone that claims to move objects, that's an area that is very difficult because there is a lot of fraud, and a lot of the cases of the past, a lot of people have been unmasked as faking some of those results. So in parapsychology, you're always dealing with all those things at the same time. It's hard to find sometimes the real thing, but many of us around the field believe that there are certainly phenomena that cannot be accounted by normal means. And that's what keeps us going in this field, to try to determine what is happening. I cannot say that parapsychology has been very successful in explaining the phenomena. We have been more successful in providing evidence for a lot of the phenomena that I mentioned. But it's unfortunate that we still do not understand how they happen. For all the studies of ESP that we have done, we do not know how one mind in one place can obtain information from another mind or from a computer that is in a distant location. There are guesses, there are some ideas, but we still do not know how the phenomena takes place. The same with healing, with poltergeist, with some types of apparitions. We know the phenomena there, we still do not understand them. That is the challenge for future research. But we have learned at least a few things. You know, first, that they are more common, all of these phenomena are more common than are generally believed. When you talk to people, when you go out trying to find a phenomena, you find that there are a lot of people that experience these things, but they generally don't talk about these things openly. And that is that even in spite of all of parapsychology's efforts, these phenomena are still not considered by many as part of science or even part of our general society or culture. Also, when you examine that, you find out that there are many parts of society and culture that are even based on the occurrence of psychic phenomena. You know, many philosophies, beliefs, many religions are based on these beliefs, but still officially there is kind of a rejection of these things. This makes, of course, the task of parapsychology much harder, but I think it also highlights the importance of these studies. So to conclude, what I would like to impress on you today is that we believe that we have evidence that a lot of these phenomena take place even if we don't understand them. But it's very important that we search for them, that we study them in systematic ways. We cannot accept them just purely on faith. We need to analyze them critically, because sometimes they get mixed with all kinds of normal mechanisms, with fraud, with many other explanations. But that's the task of science, and eventually I think we will be able to understand the phenomena better and perhaps even apply them practically. Thank you. I will answer that saying that parapsychology is a science, because what really defines science is the methods and the approaches that you use to study a particular claim. Parapsychology uses scientific methods. Parapsychology uses things such as experimentation, where you bring people into the laboratory, you make them take certain tests, and then you put certain hypotheses to the test. Parapsychologists are always putting hypotheses to the test, which is one of the main things of science. They observe things first, develop hypotheses, and try to test them. In the laboratory, by conducting surveys, or even in the study of cases, the whole approach is empirical. It's not based on faith, it's not based on beliefs, it's based on collecting data. And that's exactly what psychologists do, what people in other fields do. So in terms of the methodology, I would say certainly parapsychology is a science. We cannot get sometimes the same results that other sciences get, but a lot of that may be explained first that we don't understand the nature of our phenomena so well. So when you don't understand the nature of the phenomena tends to be very unstable. And we are still at a very primitive stage. I believe the more that we understand more about the phenomena, the more stable it will probably become, and then it will be easier to do scientific studies. But the short answer is yes, I think it's a science because it uses the scientific method. I think it is also significant to point out that the Professional Association of Parapsychologists, the Parapsychological Association, was admitted in 1969 to the American Association for the Advancement of Science. This is a big organization based here in the United States that has as members scientific associations from all areas of science: psychology, geology, physics, biology, you name it, and every area of science is represented there. And in '69, the Parapsychological Association was accepted, and that in a way shows that other scientists that are out there also believe that we are using scientific methodology. And that, of course, is what qualifies one to say that we are doing science. Well, generally there is a confusion between a psychic and a parapsychologist. A psychic is a person that shows psychic phenomena. Sometimes they can control it or they have it with a very high frequency. A parapsychologist is a person that is usually trained in an area of science that studies psychic phenomena scientifically. So what we basically see is a parapsychologist will study psychics. But being a psychic is different from being a parapsychologist. A psychic is not a scientist or doesn't study parapsychology scientifically. Having said that, there can be exceptions. You know, we have had people in the field that have psychic abilities and they say that they are psychic, and they also work in the field as parapsychologists or help the field in different ways. One particular example will be our own founder here at the foundation, Eileen Garrett, which was well known as a psychic and as a medium, and she acted as that, you know, in her own realm. But she also was able to put herself into the shoes of the scholars, the scientists, and basically help the field in different ways, as it's very well known that she did. But those are exceptions. There are very few cases of people that are like that. In general, a psychic and a parapsychologist are really two different types of people, and there is nothing wrong with one or the other. It's just that they do different things, they have different training, and we should not confuse one with the other. Well, there are many things that parapsychologists do not study and that parapsychologists consider to be outside of their field. This is somewhat subjective, but the main point to make is that the world is full of weird things, of unexplained phenomena. You know, anywhere that you look, there are tales and there are phenomena that people find mysterious. Because there are phenomena that are weird and mysterious, that doesn't mean that they belong necessarily to parapsychology. There are things such as astrology, UFOs, homeopathy, even hypnosis or things like that, that parapsychologists do not study because they do not consider that they represent the idea of a parapsychological phenomena, which is generally defined as unexplained ways in which the mind interacts with our environment. And by that we mean acquisition of information, like in extrasensory perception, or affecting the environment, like in psychokinesis. And other experiences such as poltergeist or out-of-body experiences can also be seen and maybe as interacting with environment, and our mind is involved in them. There is always the perception of an individual, the possibility that it may be caused by a consciousness. That is a general way in which we limit the field of parapsychology, but certainly it's very subjective and it's not very precise. Some people have argued that phenomena such as UFOs should be part of parapsychology. And there is no question that UFOs have parapsychological components, in that some of the people that claim encounters with UFOs, they say that a lot of the contact they have with supposed extraterrestrials is done, say, through telepathy, or through, and other psychic phenomena are experienced by people that have UFO type contacts. So there are connections. The same, there are fields such as religion that study miracles or other phenomena that are not generally included in parapsychology, but sometimes it's possible to cross over and to include them. We have basically to be aware that every science has to cut their subject matter, not only conceptually, but also in terms of being practical. We don't have the time or the resources to go around studying everything that is mysterious. And some types of anomalies, such as astrology, if it's true that the stars, the planets have an influence on us, that's not necessarily within what we call parapsychological. Or if you believe that a strange creature exists, like Bigfoot or the famous chupacabras that is seen a lot in Latin America. Even if you believe that that's a creature, you may argue, okay, that's for biologists to study. It's a creature, maybe like a strange ape. Why should that be part of parapsychology? It's only if the claims are showing certain phenomena, if those visions of those creatures, say if they see those creatures pass through walls or disappear or communicate telepathically, then we will say that's more relevant to parapsychology. But in general, a lot of these areas seem to belong to other parts of science, and we basically let the other scientists deal with them. Yeah, that's a very old question. A lot of people believe that it's possible. And certainly, I think that could be a possibility in the future. We could be very sure of it. Right now, parapsychology has not been able to demonstrate that any particular method of training can develop psychic ability in a reliable way. There are people that say that they have gone through certain procedures and they have developed abilities. Others, using the same procedures, have not obtained any results. Scientifically speaking, when we try to test some of the methods, none of the methods that have been tested rigorously have really produced evidence showing that the method develops the ability. One of the problems in the training of ability, especially something as subjective as psychic phenomena, is that you have to do control research because there are many variables that affect the training. If you go to a place where they say, we'll train you using meditation to develop out-of-body experiences, say, even if you are successful, you cannot be sure that the exercises they are giving you are the ones that are causing that. There are many other factors, such as suggestion. When you go there, you're expecting that something will happen. The personality of the instructor may be so strong, or the person may be so gifted that his or her influence over you is what may be affecting you to have the phenomena, but the exercises in question are not necessarily being effective. That's why science is important, because when you use control procedures, there are ways of teasing out and determine if there is success, what is really happening. But we really don't have that knowledge right now. And the only thing we can say is that in theory and in principle, people generally just believe that these things, if they are human phenomena, we know they are human phenomena, we should be able to develop them. But we're really, in practical terms, really far from that. Yeah, you can study parapsychology in different ways. Most people are self-taught. You know, that means most people do their own readings, they read articles, books, they educate themselves in the different areas of parapsychology. If what you're looking is for more formal education, you can try starting with some of the college courses that are available now in different colleges. Many of them are just introductory surveys to parapsychology that will give you a good idea of what's happening today, what has been done in the past, and what are some of the theories and the problems in the field. We still do not have many programs, at least not here in the United States, to train people professionally as parapsychologists. Parapsychology as a profession is still a very limited field. First, there are very, very few jobs. It's very difficult to make a living, and there are really no programs that will train you or will certify you as a parapsychologist. Most of the people in the field have been trained as psychologists or as physicists or in some other areas of science or scholarships such as philosophy or history. And once they get their training, they use that training to do parapsychology. So if you have training, say, in psychology as a clinician, you can have patients that are having problems with beliefs or being afraid of psychic experiences. You can apply your counseling knowledge or the techniques that you have learned to the psychic area and then work within the field of clinical parapsychology. Or if you are an experimental psychologist or a physicist, you can use what you have learned about experiments and do telepathy experiments. But you can contribute to the field from many other areas once you have obtained the proper training. It's very important to be well trained. You can be a historian and do historical work on the development of parapsychology, of ideas, specific theories, do the life of specific parapsychologists from the past, and bring a lot of understanding of the literature of the field by doing that. That's an important contribution. From philosophy, we have several good philosophers in the field that bring their training in thinking logically to study our phenomena and try to evaluate a lot of the claims that are made about the nature of the phenomena. Those are very good contributions that you can also do. So there are many ways really to work in this field. The thing will be first to find the information about what is parapsychology so that you don't confuse it with philosophy or occultism or other areas, so that you are very well aware that it's the use of science to study this phenomena. And then find an area of knowledge that you think you want to emphasize to apply to parapsychology. That will be my advice. And once you find something that you like outside parapsychology, you find that when you come back to parapsychology, the field is so open, there's so many possibilities that almost anything that you have learned from another field outside will be useful for you. There will be a place in the field for you to apply what you have learned, and you may be able, maybe eventually, to devote yourself, if not professionally, as just very few people are able to do, at least part-time. But even part-time, this field needs workers, and you can make good contributions to it. So one day, maybe psychic phenomena will be as common as snow, but interestingly enough, and although snow is very common for us in some of the American cities and in other parts of the world, I think we still appreciate snow a lot. We have not lost that quality of looking at it and smiling it and being happy when it falls. I think the same thing will happen with psychic phenomena, even when we understand it better and we can even produce it at will if we arrive at that stage. Meaning we will recognize it as a marvel of nature, of existence, and we will simply have the experience that I'm having right now, being surrounded by it, and still, even knowing that it's common, still being grateful that we have something so interesting and so nice around us that reminds us of the good things in life, and that nature offers a lot of things for us to understand and to enjoy.
Well now, I suspect that perhaps you have a very good grounding as to just what is parapsychology. And at this point in time, I'm sure thanks to the good offices of Dr. Alvarado, he's whetted your appetite for more information about the specifics of parapsychology. I want to tell you, of course, that Parapsychology Foundation has been in existence since 1951 and was really formulated to support both academia and the public in large in their quest for information about parapsychology. To that end, we have very many programs. The publications program, where we publish our International Journal of Parapsychology, a proceedings of our International Conference series, scholarly monograph series. We have Helix Press that has to date published 2 quality paperbacks, Adventures in the Supernormal, the Garrett biography of our founder, autobiography rather, and also Tony Cornell's Investigating the Paranormal, with more titles to come. There's a grant program, a scholarship program to help you go on in your studies, the maintenance of our Eileen J. Garrett Library. There is also a Psychic Explorers Club that will seek to give you underlying information as you go forth in your quest for information in parapsychology. May I add that Parapsychology Foundation is not here to convince you that all our phenomena exist. No, to the contrary, and as it became apparent with Dr. Alvarado's statements, that there are definitely questions here. And we seek to apply scientific methodology and critical thinking, of course, seeking to find all normal explanations before we make the jump to the paranormal. But once having made that jump, Parapsychology Foundation stands ready to support you in your continued quest for information and answers to the elusive questions that we have all been seeking. Thank you.